Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited for today's guest and episode. Introducing anti-parasite expert, human biohacker, educator on womb, sexual, and trauma healing, co-founder of WikiLeaks on Telegram and across social media platforms, content creator, podcaster, and the woman who single-handedly took on helping thousands of people detoxify their bodies from the harmful side effects of the shots that were being injected and given out like candy over the last couple years, Lexi Eisenhower.
We went on to have an hour talk of medical malpractice, and then we went into my presentation on targeted individuals in the public school sector. My last video was with Jenny Constantine on boarding schools. This is how the government messed with children in the public sector. If interested in the full talk, I'll list the original video below for people wanting to hear about the medical malpractice. We're just trying to be a little safe on YouTube since it is a brand new channel coming back.
Sad, like how far we've gotten from like embracing the woman and the child, and how you were saying like then we have kids that grow up in these systems, and end up getting exploited and all these things happening to them, and it's like we're not prioritizing either. It's like a second thought. We don't care about what the schools teach them. We don't care about how industries teach them or treat them, and it's really fascinating how far we've gotten away from that. And I think what your work does is it helps us refocus and be like, what is important? Well, it's taking back our health. It is creating new life and doing it in the most healthy way, to keep things going, and then to protect our future generations by taking care of ourselves.
Precisely. And I mean, this all goes back to tearing the family unit apart, because if you have a strong masculine figure, a father figure, then he essentially acts as an umbrella to the wife and the children. And when you have this strong nuclear family, you don't have as much of the forgetting about it's not so much forgetting about the kids, because the programming of these dark elites, they have put the kids on a pedestal, but not in a good way. They're like, oh, give the kid a million toys for brain advancement. It's like, really? Well, if the kid had just like a couple wooden blocks and puzzles, that does more for the brain than this like jumpstart video game that they have. So you're actually kind of making them dumb by giving them all this stimulating stuff. So a lot of the moms mistook raising the child and prioritizing the child. They mistook that for, let's give them all the best clothes, all the best commodities, all the best toys. I didn't have a bunch of toys, so I'm going to give the kid an enormous amount. So then the kid doesn't care about the toys. The house is always dirty because kids can only really play with like 5 toys and less and actually be engaged. Whereas any parent, you go into the house with kids and most of them have toys cluttering everywhere and the kid isn't playing with any of them. So in some ways, they have prioritized the kid. I hate this. We're going to go into like sports, but oh, you have to be off by this time to take the kid to this sport practice. And then that's on Wednesdays, but you have to get the other kid and take him to this sport practice. And that amount of wasted time on sports that we have right now, which are mainly basketball, baseball, and football here in America, American football, those are all very traumatic sports. Like when I went to college, it was just a community college that was actually great for kids for the sports programs. So there were 18, 19-year-old basketball, baseball players who were broken. They all had torn ACLs, they all had they were broken, and this was just from high school and 2 years of college, and they were under 20 years old. And then because they're all broken everywhere and torn ligaments and things and broken blah blah blah, they all had to be on painkillers. So now you're making the warriors of society, which are going to be the fastest, strongest people, which are going to eventually obviously be sports players, you're making them addicted to painkillers at 19. You're getting them on steroids, which makes them infertile because they have to get ready for going to the major leagues, which all the major leagues, do you think The Rock naturally looks like that? No, it's steroids. So it's really brilliant how the school is doing this. So I have an hour. I wanted to go through this. When we think of the human slave trade, we all think of Epstein Island and the sex trade. And, oh, they're eating humans, which they are, but it goes so much further into that. It goes into simple K through 12. And it doesn't even matter if it's public or private because they both have their own sets of programming. So there's a lot of stages from infant to 11, and 11 is a really big one. Obviously, I'm making a pun for Stranger Things because she's obviously the number one targeted individual we all think of, but the age of 11 is huge, and that's kind of where all of this programming starts at, is getting you at a perfect place when you're 11 years old. Even Harry Potter, they start at when the child is 11. It's right when the child is starting puberty. They're at their most like they can absorb information. They're very smart. I think the smartest human is between 9 and 11, and then they kind of start getting stupid after that, personally. So yes, in non-wartime, we're called healers, my tribe, but the tribe right now is they're doing sexual transmutations, which means your guys's prostates and ovaries and uteruses are under extreme attack right now over the past 3 years. Slowly, yes, since the 1990s, babies started getting our series of shots, but like it's all come up to the past biological weapon that was released onto the world. So I cover everything on my normal. Go check out Ricky Leaks. We cover salt, UV light, oxygen, carbon. And then if you want to bring in, all the popular stuff, the big pharma stuff, maybe try that at the end. The one I really love is febendazole. Hydroxychloroquine's okay. When I tell people about like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, people were on it for 10 years and never cured their arthritis. Whereas people are on chlorine dioxide and hydrogen peroxide for 6 months and they cure their arthritis. So like there's stuff that works better than maybe the popular stuff you're hearing about online. So we allow targeted individuals to utilize their body and not be taken over by an agent. Remember, Neo has to remove his stomach bug in the Matrix to explain this need to utilize the body and not be taken over by an agent. So even Neo in the first 10 minutes of the Matrix series has to remove his stomach bug. That's why we are starting here. And this is why targeted individuals start at school, because how do you get a stomach bug into someone? Well, if you're going to school, you can say immunizations are required. Now look up insect larvae in all shots. And this has been a thing since the 50s. We know that you have to and the biggest lie you ever hear is, that's a virus. Okay, well, look up what a virus is. A virus is an obligate parasite. So let's stop calling it a virus and let's call it what it actually is, a parasite. That's bacteria. Okay, let's look up what bacteria is. Oh, it's a parasitic infection. Let's stop calling it bacteria. Like, we have to unlearn some things that we were taught in school. Now, why were we taught this stuff in school? Okay, there was a little thing called World War II. It probably didn't go down the way we heard it went down. And that's why there was a huge, not just high school, this is high school. There was a huge school curriculum shift right after World War II. Basically, what how it used to be is people could get a K through 8 education and they knew everything they needed to do to go apprentice with their dad. And you had plumbers and sons, electrician and sons. And then at 14, the son would be old enough to go work with dad, basically, and learn a trade. But then the trades got taken over, which is why we call them masons. Masons are going to be the trade men of the town that build the town. This could be building bricks and making the structures of buildings. This could be laying the roads and making the roads for the city. This could be doing plumbing and electrical. These are why the parasites had to take over the trades and the first responders of a town, because I've talked to many police officers in this and they get the weirdest calls, like demonic activity. A lot of times first responders are the first ones to see. So you have to get um parasites in the schools, in the first responders, and the trades in order to take over a society. So that all started happening extremely after World War II. Okay, fourth grade, between 10 and 11 years old is when the recruiting of children kind of becomes very top priority in schools. And I know everyone here remembers going and getting your like someone would show up from the government on school days and they're like, "Oh, we're checking everyone's sight and hearing. Let's see how good your sight and hearing is. Let's do eye test." And we were all like, "Okay, no big deal." What they were actually doing is, if there were special people, if there were children with special abilities, the children with special abilities would hear tones that normal children couldn't. So when you clicked on a tone, that basically let the government know, oh, they have hearing, they have sight. Whereas 95% of the other kids who have perfect hearing, perfect sight, could only see these certain things, these certain lines, these certain tones. Whereas if you had a gifted child, an 11, people that could actually manipulate matter and hear things that normal people can't hear, see things, you would know from these tests. And then the kid is, I remember I got a call in fourth grade, and the fourth grade teacher's like, and he was really upset about it. I remember that was a thing. He was like, "I feel really bad about doing this, but your daughter has to go to a gifted program." And he talked to my mom. My mom's like, "Okay." And then I went into this gifted fourth grade class. And they learned more things. They had a ton of field trips. And then in fifth grade, I was at the same school. So I went to the fifth grade gifted class. Again, we went on a crazy amount of field trips. I don't remember many of them, but we went on them. So a lot of parents are like, "Oh, well, we'll trust the school." The school is where all this stuff is happening, and it has the number one trust from parents, which is really, really scary. And like, obviously, homeschool rates have skyrocketed recently, and this is why we realized that the schools were being stupid during COVID. So that is kind of um how we're getting smart and pulling our kids out of school and becoming our own education, basically. So what how school is basically finding the warriors of a society, and it is either trying to make those warriors on their black agenda side, or just simply make sure the warriors are broken and on drugs by the time that they're 18, 19, 20. So through school, we have extracurricular activities. These are clubs. These are theater and band and choir and debate team and chess team. All of these different clubs basically is a way that you can shift through the warriors and be like, okay, so our strategic people are a part of this club. And then you can start um, giving them the tools to fight for, in our case, the black hats. So in the performing arts, it's obvious that mostly liberal leaning kids, that's how we see these people, are going to join theater or whatever the case is. Whereas the really, really tough, fast, strong kids are going to join sports. Whereas the very, very smart kids are going to be in like academic type clubs. So I was a theater kid. I'm very theatrical, but and I we learned some crazy stuff in theater. We learned about cross-dressing is the number one oldest form of clowns. And there's a Japanese clown, Habuki, I believe, that you have to cross dress. And at the time, we were told, oh, women weren't allowed to be actors. So men had to pretend to be the actors. And that's where clowns, the cross dressing clowns come in. And then when you're in 8th or 9th grade, you spend that whole year just reading Shakespeare and how to read Shakespeare and how, which is total bullshit. Like, sorry, but Shakespeare would cringe if he or she found out how Shakespeare's being taught, because Shakespeare was very much, and there's a lot of conspiracies around Shakespeare. Is it Francis Bacon? Is it a woman pretending to be Francis Bacon, pretending to be Shakespeare? There's like crazy stuff into that. Look into it yourself. But if what we know about CIA clowns and having to write out plays and books and stuff of that nature actually predicts our reality, then you need to understand how the stage is set and understanding things about theater. So, theater is a wonderful thing that all kids, the sports players, the smart kids, they should be in theater too, but they're not. In school, it's very not cool, and you can't be a part of that group because this is how the mafia is keeping people segregated and not join and basically make an army that would be made of the best fighters, and this is how they're corrupting our kids. So if they go into theater, that's wonderful. But every school usually has an ROTC program. There's even private schools that are just simply military schools, and the bad kids go to military school. And why does the military have theater? If the theater of war is a huge thing you hear about in military. So when we hear about the military, you're getting the people of each town who wants to fight, and you put them under your thumb. And my husband was in the National Guard for 6 years. We saw some dirty stuff, like extremely dirty stuff. Doug Ducey was our governor for most of it, I think all of his term. And he was sending like the troops to teach UN soldiers how to fight. And none of the, and whenever you hear about like the theater of war, they're like, oh, don't pay attention to National Guard, they're just weekend here or weekend warriors, they're not real. When in reality, what's happening is the states, the governors have their own militia, and the state governors are actually using their armies of the states to do extremely horrible things. And most of the stuff that's being done is actually through these state governors using these militias known as the National Guard. And then you have what we all think of as the military, which is the 1% active duty people. And they're kind of just playing a, they are being utilized like a country will hire the American armed active forces to come to their town and do different things, either patrol or, hey, we have a small military here in this little country, can we pay for your military? We do a lot of that kind of stuff. And then of course we know that there's a lot of lies about certain wars. So even if the active duty is in a combat mission on a war, it's not necessarily what people are describing. It's a different kind of fighting altogether. So we need eyes on state government national guards and what they're doing, because I know Arizona National Guard, when Trump got into office, they were sent to Guantanamo Bay, and Guantanamo Bay was made like 3 or 4 times the size, and all this money went into making Guantanamo Bay in Cuba huge, like it's going to hold a bunch of new prisoners soon. And you wouldn't know that that happened, but it was a state, it was a state militia that was sent out to do that. So, and then of course the Second Amendment makes each and every human being born in America allowed to have their own militia. You are your own commander of your own war. That is, the military is the only way that you can fight. You have to realize that you have your military right and you can fight using that. The military is the only way. And the military active duty might just be exactly what they tell you it is: theater. Okay, so why trust what we think we know if we know school lies? For example, we all heard that 1422, the one guy sailed the big old blue, whatever. But in reality, in 1421, it's been proven that China was actually in America first. And if you kind of put things together, you're like, huh, I wonder why when the Spaniard fleets and the English came here, why were people already speaking English? Oh, that makes sense. China was actually the one to discover America. China was actually the first people here. It's very interesting when you start hearing the little rumors around. It makes a lot more sense for things we're having to deal with now. And then Shakespeare was a woman. There's a lot of heresies around Shakespeare. And this little girl, I think she's obviously like a liberal. She lives in Washington, D.C., Elizabeth Winkler, and she just wanted to write this little book about all the weird rumors she heard about Shakespeare. And she got treated like a Holocaust denier. She got treated so bad by the media for just making this little book. She's like, what the heck? People are calling me anti-vaxxer. Like, of course, we understand what that means, but she's just like a normal little girl that was like making a book. And when the media treats you like that, you're over something huge. So she basically unknowingly uncovered a huge rabbit hole with Shakespeare alone. And when you start realizing that Shakespeare made Macbeth, which is very similar to the King Arthur story of basically a crown of a king being taken from him and the rightful king having to take the crown back over. And then also King Lear. We're seeing King Lear happen on a real stage right now. It's where a king went crazy and they're trying to keep it from his people that he's not fit for office. And yeah, just very weird stuff that is happening in real time. So you are the military. Stop waiting for the military. Realize you are the military and you can fight. You can fight by cleaning yourself. You can fight by getting information out to people. You can fight by getting your kids out of maybe public school and really paying attention to where your kids are getting their education from. There's so many different ways to fight. So the goal, we've talked about military in schools. We've talked about fake curriculum in schools. We've talked about how schools are getting involved in your parental status and able to send you to CPS. We've talked about teaching children through the performing arts how to be spies, basically, and very interesting things. But really, what I hate most about kids is the fact that they're made to go into sports. And I wouldn't mind sports if they were different than the ones we were given, because I do want people to be moving their bodies. We are definitely disconnected to our bodies. I think we definitely need to be moving, but the sports that we are given, which are extreme impact to joints, like basketball, it's people's joints are getting like ripped apart, and the amount of the way you throw the ball and the way you land on your legs. And then, of course, there are bad falls without any protection. Basically, people are getting really, really hurt. They're not going to be able to fight the Chinese basically because they have an old basketball injury. Same thing goes with baseball is horrible on the body. No one should be doing it. And then football is like the worst. We already know that the amount of concussions that's happening to football players and the size requirements. You basically can't be in the NFL unless you're on steroids, even though they say you can't be on steroids. Like, I've seen those linebackers that's not natural, especially when you look at linebackers. I tell everyone to go watch the Chicago Bears 1985-86 Super Bowl. It was a very famous Super Bowl where the Bears went and they made this little like Super Bowl song. And when you look at the size of people that our football players used to be in the mid 80s, and if you look at the size of football players now, it's not the same. And there was even a football one of the, I think, a linebacker, I would assume he was called the refrigerator. Like, he was huge compared to anyone else on the team back in 1985. But if you watch that same video now, he's kind of small to be a linebacker. What do you think linebackers are doing? What do you think has changed? Like, our whole sports industry has been taken over, and it's not what you think it is, and it's just wasting time. People are wasting thousands of dollars, thousands of hours at these stupid Saturday meets, and it's just killing your kid. It's getting your kid to a point that they are going to have to go to a school, which is, I don't want your kid to be in school for 12 years, let alone you have to go to this liberal education afterwards. And that's where you go to be picked for these horrible pro sports. And if you look at these schools, I know Baylor University in Texas, they have back-to-back sexual abuse trials going on right now for their sports kids. Like, it's just bad news bears. So basically you're getting the strongest, fastest of each school, of each really little town. You're getting all of the warriors who could fight, and you're breaking them, and you're getting them under the cabal's thumb. Basically, it's very interesting how we're seeing this all play out. Yeah, Baylor exempts from sexual harassment rules. So we know this is happening on a wide scale. It's very disgusting. Hold on here. Let's go down. Oh, drugs, school drugs. Okay, so obviously, we spoke about people getting so hurt in those later years of high school and college for sports programs that they're going to end up on pain relief. Like, basically, it goes into meth and heroin. When you can't get any more pain pills, you're still going to want and have that addiction. So this is how you basically make people addicted to narcotics, because they were simply in a school program. And then I know whenever I needed, like, when I went to 4 different high schools in 3 years, and all over the country, you would always go get your weed. If you were having a little party that weekend, call up your Mormon friend. They have weed. And they would all go, oh, I know, it's so weird that a Mormon is like the bad one. We all know that the Mormons like to party, and it was just a little secret. But then you see, oh, the Mormons got into a huge fight with the Mexican cartels, and the Mormons actually go on all these missions to these countries with drugs, but they wouldn't get in trouble because they're Mormons. Who would ever look in the back of a Mormon car for all this drugs? Oh, and then you get to see how the Mormons are involved with the CIA and are actually in these Mason groups. And those Mason groups will figure out who's being sold what kind of drugs. So then if the dad wants to advance in society, well, my son is selling your kid drugs, so then they have something over you. So then it's how the Masons are ruling everything. And we obviously know churches are dirty. And I always tell people, what do the Mormons and TikTok have in common? They used to be called something else, and then they had so many sexual abuse cases that they had to change their name. So LDS is now what we're supposed to call Mormons, because it's not cool to call Mormons Mormons anymore. Is it 95% of the people who are Mormons? No, it's only one or two of the brothers or sisters in each church. Same thing goes with Catholics. And Catholics, what I've noticed with Catholic churches, they have more of a grip on Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, AA. They have more of a grip on the adults of society who they need to get under their thumb. No, there's no such thing as a recovering alcoholic. You get rid of the parasite that craves alcohol and you won't be an alcoholic anymore. But it's literally an Aleister Crowley. AA is a spell that Aleister Crowley made to keep people into this horrible life form. So people are like, but it helped me, but it helped me. No, they help you. That's how the mafia works. They help you so that you're always under them, and they tell you that you'll never be good without them. That is how a narcissistic relationship happens. That's how these not Mormons, Masons have been infiltrated to take over society. They're using every church. Each church has a different corrupt thing they're doing, and this is how they're playing out. So they get you drugs. Oh, and then of course teachers are telling people, parents, oh, your kid has ADHD, I just can't handle him in class, get him on whatever ADHD medicine they're on now. And that does so much hormone disruption and things of itself, where if the kid was just allowed to go outside and play, and if we didn't have these classrooms the way they are, you could totally have kids not in a classroom setting learn way more about math, science in just the kitchen, cooking or cleaning or doing all these active things that they're using their bodies, so they don't have to be riled up in a classroom. Of course, every kid is going to be not able to sit through a boring class. That's very much prisoner warfare. And yeah, prisons. My middle school, one of my middle schools looked exactly like a prison. And then we found out that there are contractors who make prisons and schools. Like, if the floor plans for prisons are the same floor plans for many high schools, they look the same, they're cold, it's really, really bad. And then why does our school bus look exactly like a prison bus? Why? His story, this is about Jesus, is his story, but it's also whoever won the battle gets to tell their version of the story. So what's the other version of the story is always what I tell people to think of. And lastly, ultimately, this whole talk, what it has all been about is school is trying to stop your self-esteem, stop self-esteem from growing, stop you from having any esteem for yourself. Our kids they don't know what to think. They're told what to think. They're told to act what's cool. They're told all these things that they are told they're obviously not good enough. And they have shit self-esteem. So this is my favorite book, not just for children either. I think it would be a great book for businesses to read. I know some not corrupt military and police officers who are making their units read this. And it's funny because it's called Inspiration for Teens, but it's really inspiration for everyone. The story is written by a dear friend of Ricky Leaks, Paul Hemphill. He is a like Civil War historian, and he really put a lot of time into Gettysburg. Like, he knows all about these random things of Gettysburg. And there were just dozens and dozens of stories that, of course, we're not taught about, of children in Gettysburg in the Civil War who had to fight. And these kids did various things. They took communications when communications went down, when the all the adults were fighting. They had to get information to places. They had to put themselves in scary predicaments. They got people out of bad places. Like they were fighting. And these were kids, like little guys. All ages, children were fighting in Gettysburg. And it's just real life stories. It's kind of like a chicken book for the soul, chicken soup for the soul book, where it's just real life stories of these kids during the Civil War. And like when you read it and you realize, oh my God, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old did that, I can definitely share my truth on social media. Like we have it so easy. And I know a lot of us are like, oh my God, it's so hard. This is all horrible. I can't believe this is happening. Okay, you guys, we have running water, we have air conditioning, we have internet. Like, yes, obviously we've been sucked by vampires, and yes, literally adrenochrome is a thing, which means there's real life vampires. Yes, all these scary things are happening, but we have it a lot easier than like any other people in history having to fight the same exact thing. So when you start cleansing your gut, your mind becomes clear. You yourself get self-esteem, because when you heal yourself, especially when people have been told that they're never going to heal themselves from something, they they do get rid of that little thing that the doctor told them they couldn't get rid of, and they do start making insulin again, and they do blah blah blah, all this stuff. Your self-esteem goes way high, and it's not cocky. It's like, oh, I see what works, oh my gosh. And you finally get the self-esteem, and that gives you the courage to start becoming a warrior again, which really this whole thing was explaining, that school is taking away these kids' courage, and at the same time segregating the different types of warriors that really need to come together. We need the basketball players to be friends with the theater kids, because when you go to make an organization for your work, or even if you have to join a war, you have to have the strategy that maybe the ROTC kid knows about, or the chess kid knows about, with the strength of the sport kids, with the theater of the theater kids. And why I say that is, we think of Hollywood, we know Hollywood's bad, but why is Hollywood bad? It's a bunch of theater kids who know how to manipulate the masses. I have been following the SAG strike, all the strikes with all the unions. If you ask me, there's not a single strike. I think Hollywood is dead. I think the old country has been torn down, and we're seeing it in proof of all these strikes that are happening. I think we are being lied to about the strikes, and the only ones who are telling you about the strikes are actors and performers. And I know Trump pulled out of SAG, I think in 2020 or 2021. And I don't think unions are around anymore for a much bigger thing than we can even imagine. Right now, we're just hearing that there's like 60 to 80 different strikes of unions. That has never, ever happened in the world. If that many unions are on strike for all these different reasons, I have a feeling it's because there's no unions right now. So, but you wouldn't know that because actors are great at acting. So they're being told to say it's for this reason, for that reason, when I think it's a much bigger reason. So yeah, that's pretty much the conclusion of today's talk that I have. Let me stop sharing my screen.
That's all so fascinating. And it goes so hand in hand with, after World War II, Project Paperclip and all of that too, and I know that you know that, and it's beyond the scope of this, but there's so many layers to all of this. And people, like how you said, they manipulate history too. So we're left out of not only our history, but over like what's literally happening in our time and what happened right before we got here.
Exactly. It's scary. I mean, and that's another thing I try to tell people. We don't want to bring in fear to the conversation. I never want to bring fear. And instead of saying, like I just said, it's scary, I try and go, you know what? Round of applause to my enemy. Like he played a good game. And if we do that, if we, instead of going, when you find out all this horrible stuff, instead of going, oh my gosh, like I can't believe it, how scary, they can do this, just be like, you know what, he played a good game, the devil played a wonderful game. And when you say this, you also tell yourself, like, don't feel stupid. Don't feel hoodwinked. It was a very beautiful game that was played against you. And don't feel stupid for not seeing the signs. Don't feel bad that you gave your kid a vaccine. The doctor was under the top black magic to make it seem like it was a good idea. The best CIA level programming went into your theater kid. So that's why the theater kid is a liberal who is screaming right now at a protest with her shirt off saying all this crazy stuff. Like when you understand the amount of programming, you immediately have empathy for all who were like undercome by it and you don't hate them, if that makes sense.
It does. I talk about that a lot. It's controversial. It doesn't, people think that that means that we're excusing behavior, and that's not it. You know, it's finding the humanity and realizing that everybody was born an innocent child, and having empathy for that child, still seeing that child and saying, what happened to you that you became this? Because that's not who you were born to be. That's not who you were born as. You know, so it's just like crying for that little child and like what happened to it to turn it into something that it was never intended to be. You know, and I think that's
Yeah.
a beautiful point to bring up, because there's so much hate in this world. Everybody is at each other's throats, and it's like, man, if we all just looked at like each other's baby pictures and realized that like we were all just born these cute little kids with the whole world in front of us, and we were corrupted, a lot of us more than others, you know, and some of us way more than others, you know, we'd cry for all those little kids.
And when you realize exorcisms are needed, and when you realize when you do a parasite cleanse and you see what comes out of you, and we're all, if you're watching this podcast, you're awake. You're not a stupid person. You're a pretty awakened individual. You are obviously a free thinker if you found this podcast. So we're the most smartest, cleanest people, and even we have stuff. So it's like, oh my gosh, if this came out of me, what's going to come out of Hunter Biden? Like, oh my gosh, like I get it. And then when you realize they're puppets and you see the hand come out of the puppet and just a shell of a person who doesn't remember doing anything. And Beyonce legitimately might have never done anything bad in her life, but Sasha Fierce has. Sasha Fierce takes over Beyonce. That's her demon that takes over her. So it's like, once you realize when the demon comes out of a person and the person doesn't remember their 75% of their life, you don't feel so much hatred towards the person. You redirect and you find the real enemy, and you're like, okay, I see. They just want us to hate the puppets. You have to hate the hand that's in the puppet.
Oh, great point. I love how you said that, girl. And
Yeah.
that was an awesome presentation. I want to be respectful of your time. I know that you have somewhere that you have to be. So let's tell people where they can find you again, real
Yes.
quick. We'll wrap up. And I definitely want you to come back on, because there's so much more we can talk about.
Yes, if you have any questions, put it in the comments below and we'll get to it next time that I'm on the show. Check out my stuff. RickyLeaks.com is where like all my links are, or you could just go to Rumble and search Ricky Leaks there. You'll find all of our videos as well. But my website has my links when I've been on other people's channels too. So that's where I usually send everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna link all of that in the show notes, you guys. Please go support Lexi, her missions, her pages. You know, this stuff does not get elevated at all. It's very censored. So I always say it helps so much. Even just subscribing to a Rumble channel can do so much for somebody. So go follow Lexi. Lexi, thank you so much for coming on here. This really was like so special and so valuable, and your knowledge is just absolutely incredible. So I can't wait to have you back on. You guys, thank you for supporting. You can find all my links below as well. Thank you for watching and supporting. God bless you, and we will see you next time.